It's been well over a year since Argentina defeated France in the final in Qatar, making all of their previous kits obsolete by adding a third star above their crest and finally crowning Messi, in the eyes of many, as the best player in the world. With the tournament still being more or less fresh in our memories, I thought it would be interesting to see how Argentina came to win this latest World Cup more than 100 years since playing their first game. As usual, the first suspects are the British, and I'm not talking about the Falklands here, as our story starts in the late 19th century. British nationals initially freighted over the newfangled sport to Argentina, being employed by the many British railroad companies operating in the country. See what I did there? Freighting? Trains? Okay, I'll stop now. The first ever football game on Argentinian soil was played on May 9, 1867, but the rules did not resemble anything we are used to seeing today. Roughly 20 years later, under the stewardship of Alexander Watson Hutton, a Glaswegian schoolteacher considered the father of Argentinian football, the first Argentine Football Federation and the first club sides started appearing all over the country. As the 20th century rolled along, the first unofficial match of an Argentine national team was disputed against Uruguay in 1901. The game was considered unofficial as the Uruguayan team was representing both their country and Albion FC, who were the pioneers of Uruguayan football. 1 year later, the same two teams contested a match which is officially considered the first game of the Argentine national team. Of the starting lineup, many players were of British descent, somewhat resembling Alexis McAllister's story in the current squad. The first years of the national team were peppered with the odd friendly, but in 1905 and 1906, they started taking part in two now defunct tournaments. The Lipton and Newton Cups were two tournaments held between Argentina and Uruguay, which ran until 1992 and 1976 respectively. The Lipton Cup actually got its name from Thomas Lipton, he of tea fame, donating the trophy to the organizers. After trading the two previously mentioned cups between themselves and Uruguay, with both teams experiencing periods of dominance, they took part in the initial form of the Copa America in 1916. The so-called South American Championship headed to Buenos Aires and Avellaneda, and Uruguay won the first edition. Argentina had to wait until 1921 to get their hands on the trophy, with further wins coming in 1921, 25 and 29, leading the nation to the first World Cup in 1930. At the tournament, Argentina performed very well, reaching the final, but succumbed to their age-old rivals Uruguay. The team, however, failed to replicate its success at the next tournament, losing their only game against Sweden at the 1934 edition. They would miss the next 3 World Cups, refusing to participate in the 1950 and 54 editions, but during their World Cup absence, legendary coach Guillermo Stabile guided them to 7 South American Championship trophies. During their return to the pinnacle of international football in 1958, Stabile did not call up stars Humberto Maschio, Antonio Angelillo and Ballon d'Or winner Omar Sivori, all of them playing in Serie A, the most competitive league at the time, and the team fared poorly. 2 losses and 1 win were named El Desastre de Suecia, the Swedish disaster, and the team would be greeted with insults upon landing in Buenos Aires. After the Swedish disaster, the Albiceleste bounced back to win the 1959 Copa America, employing 3 managers who would all co-manage the team and probably providing inspiration for the Michael Jim co-management arc in The Office. A Copa America drought would subsequently ensue, which would last until 1991. Further trophy wins in the 1960 Pan American Cup and the 1964 Nations Cup were interrupted by a group stage exit at the 1962 World Cup. And for those of you wondering what the Nations Cup was, it was a friendly tournament held in honor of the Brazilian FA turning 50, nicknamed the Little World Cup at the time. Having qualified for the 66th edition of the World Cup, the team showed some shaky form in their pre-tournament friendlies, but 2 wins and a draw saw them progress from the groups in England. They would face the hosts in their next game, a game which would add to the amount of controversy at that edition of the tournament and would arguably kickstart the Argentine-England rivalry. Referee Rudolf Kreitlein sent off Argentinian player Antonio Ratin for, quote, violence of the tongue, even though the ref did not speak a word of Spanish. Outraged, Ratin refused to leave the pitch and sat himself down on the red carpet designated for Queen Elizabeth. Having been removed by police officers, the game resumed and ended in a 1-0 win for England. The reception of the team back home betrayed its poor performances, with the locals possibly having their solidarity with the team increased by their acrimonious exit. The mood of the Argentine supporters would be further soured by their failure to qualify for the 1970 World Cup, making that the only occasion where La Albiceleste would fail to qualify for a World Cup that they actively wanted to take part in. The legendary Omar Sivori came back to the national team, this time as a manager, in order to help the team qualify for the 1974 edition. Argentina were drawn against Paraguay and Bolivia, which meant that they would face the Bolivians in La Paz, the highest capital city in the world, where players often experience the effect of altitude sickness. Sivori thus decided to take the whole team at a training camp in San Francisco del Tilcara, located at over 8,000 feet or 2,400 meters. With the team being sequestered in a remote part of the country and the FA being horribly disorganized, the press could not receive any details regarding the squad. La Selección Fantasma, or the Ghost National Team, was chosen as the nickname for this iteration of the national team, with Mario Kempes revealing years later that they had to organize their own friendlies in order to be able to buy food. The Argentinian FA probably had a similar reaction to a parent coming home from the school run without their child when the qualified teams were announced before the tournament. In West Germany, fortune did not smile upon the ghost team and they exited at the second group stage. This debacle finally provoked a knee-jerk reaction from the FA and the rebuild was planned. Two momentous events were about to unfold, which would change the course of Argentinian football. The first was marked in 1977 when a 16-year-old Diego Armando Maradona made his debut for the national team. The second one was the 1978 World Cup. Argentina had been awarded hosting rights and the FA turned to manager Cesar Luis Menotti to lead La Albiceleste. His decision to leave Maradona out of the squad has unknown motives to this day, with some speculating that he was put under pressure by the military junta. The same junta was at the heart of the controversy regarding this World Cup, which is viewed as one of the most disgraceful tournaments in history. Much like in 2022, FIFA insisted on hosting the tournament in a repressive and totalitarian state led by Jorge Rafael Videla, who regularly committed human rights abuses and war crimes. Another similarity was that the junta needed this tournament to legitimize themselves and gain prestige on the international stage. During the tournament, many teams complained of the hosts being refereed preferably, whilst Argentina would always play their games in the evening after knowing all of the other results from their group. Argentina advanced to the second group round by defeating Hungary and France and losing to Italy, and in the game against the French, one of France's players stated that the referee told Argentinian player Daniel Passarella, quote, "Don't do that again please, or I might actually have to give it next time," after France were denied a clear penalty. In the second round, they were drawn in a group with Poland, Brazil and Peru. Victory against Poland, a draw against Brazil, and the 4-1 defeat of the Peruvians at the hands of Brazil meant that Argentina needed a big scoreline to reach the final. Amidst allegations of grain shipments to Peru being unlocked and unfreezing of Peruvian bank accounts, the game ended 6-0 for Argentina. In the final, they would meet the Netherlands, who were without Johan Cruyff. The Dutch maestro did not travel to Argentina, having been the victim of a kidnapping attempt a few months before. For a very long time, people have speculated that the military junta actually made threats to Cruyff's and his family's life, and that is why he didn't choose to travel to Argentina, although they were never confirmed. In the final, Mario Kempes was instrumental, scoring 2 goals, and the Argentinians went on to win 3-1. 1 year later, Menotti led the team to the Youth World Cup, winning it with Maradona in their ranks. The 1982 World Cup, however, would not be as sweet, as they would exit the tournament in the second round amidst tensions in the dressing room between older and younger players. The English-Argentinian rivalry saw its height during these years, as the Falklands War was unfolding just as the 1982 World Cup was starting, and 4 years later, one of the most famous World Cup incidents occurred. At the 1986 tournament, Argentina progressed out of a group containing Italy, Bulgaria and South Korea, and after a heated clash against Uruguay, they were due to face England in the quarter-finals. Maradona would score 2 goals in that game, the hand of God and the most beautiful goal of all time, and Argentina were through. Belgium were dispatched in the semis and Germany in the final, Maradona's talent propelling the national team to a second title in 8 years. In the next 4 years, their performances would dip drastically, and at the 1990 World Cup, the squad looked shaky, with many of the players, including Maradona, playing through injuries. Goalkeeper Sergio Goicoechea was arguably their best player, making a number of crucial saves against Brazil in the first knockout round and saving penalties in the shootouts in the quarters and semis against Yugoslavia and Italy. In the final, however, Germany would get their revenge. In a tough and brutal game, a late German goal from a spot kick saw the third star go on the German jerseys. A new era was about to begin with Alfio Basile, who sought to rejuvenate the squad, replacing manager Carlos Bilardo and Maradona retiring. 1 year later, Argentina broke their 32-year drought in the Copa America, winning back-to-back titles in 1991 and 1993. Maradona returned to the national team after his substance abuse problems, but was not included in the 1993 roster. The qualifiers for the 1994 World Cup were horribly disastrous, with Colombia topping the group and robbing Argentina 5-0. This sent La Albiceleste to a playoff round against Australia, prompting El Gráfico, the most important sports magazine of Argentina, to print out a completely black cover with only vergüenza or shame spelled out. Maradona was recalled to the squad before the games against Australia, and the team qualified for the tournament. In the US, they won their first 2 games against Greece and Nigeria, but lost Maradona after the second game due to a failed drugs test. The last group game ended in defeat at the hands of Bulgaria, before Romania knocked them out in the round of 16. And if you're wondering why Bulgaria and Romania were so good back then, but aren't anymore, I have 2 videos on the topic on my channel if you want to watch them later. Despite the previous heartbreak and Maradona's retirement, the team went into the 1998 World Cup with a strong claim to being the favorites, with players like Batistuta and Simeone in great form. 3 wins in their group against Japan, Jamaica and Croatia, with no goals conceded, once again lined them up for a clash with their second arch-rivals England. Of course, we needed some controversy for this rivalry, and this game provided plenty. In the second half, with the score tied at 2-2, David Beckham was sent off for kicking at Diego Simeone, and the score remained unchanged despite English squad being 1 man down, but the Argentinians ultimately won on penalties. In the next round, it would be all over for them, with Dennis Bergkamp scoring the winner for the Netherlands with one of the most beautiful goals ever scored at the World Cup. The next 4 World Cup tournaments would end in heartbreak for La Albiceleste, the 2002 tournament in particular, where they exited the group stage. The 2006 World Cup marked the first tournament of Maradona's spiritual heir and arguably the best player of all time, Lionel Messi. He would, however, take much longer than his superstar predecessor in order to lift the famous trophy. On the World Cup stage, Germany became the scourge of Argentina, knocking them out on penalties in the quarters in 2006, thrashing them 4-0 again in the quarters in 2010, and defeating them in the final in 2014. At the 2018 World Cup, the team performed horribly, drawing against Iceland in the groups, losing 3-0 to Croatia, beating Nigeria in the final group stage match, and being eliminated at the round of 16 by eventual winners France. The Copa America would not be any kinder to La Albiceleste and their new superstar, suffering another drought lasting from 1993 to 2021. As in any good story, the hero needs to face adversities in order to earn his ultimate prize. By the time the 2020s rolled around, it seemed that Argentina's hero had faced defeat at the highest stages, with parts of the public turning against him. However, Messi would have the last laugh, with Lionel Scaloni's appointment marking a change in the fortunes of the squad. The relatively inexperienced coach would foster a sense of unity and never say die attitude amongst his players, and together with his superstar, he would lead them to the 2021 Copa America and the 2022 World Cup. It remains to be seen how Argentina will cope with the future loss of Lionel Messi, but for the time, I think I can speak for most football fans when I say that I look forward to seeing him don the sky blue and white jersey with 3 stars on it, as he has earned it. Thank you so much for sticking around till the end. If you have any thoughts or comments, please feel free to put them below this video. If you like the content, a like and a subscribe would really help me a lot as I'm trying to grow my channel, and I hope I will see you next time for another video.